got a strong team on paper, but execution still feels slower and harder than it should be? Welcome to the Executive Peel. We've interviewed over 240 executive leaders from organizations such as Disney, Coca-Cola, DriveTime, the CIA, and many more major national and international brands. Now we focus on CEOs and senior executives of multi-location, operation-heavy companies, digging into what's working, what's still hard, and how they're growing themselves and their leaders so their business can grow fast without them in every decision. I'm your host, Alex D. Tremble, CEO of GPS Leadership Solutions, where we run a 14-day executive leadership diagnostic for CEOs who know they have a good team, but also know they're leaving profit on the table because the organization is not as productive or efficient as it should be. We help them find their leadership bottlenecks in 14 days and build a 90-day plan to fix them. Now, if you're looking for some real advice from some real-world tested operators, this is the place for you. Let's meet our next guest. Hey, what's good, my friend? How you doing, Andrea?
Good. How are you?
I am, as they say, blessed and highly favored. I am here with the one, the only, the legend. As I got the opportunity to just kind of prepare and really dig into your background and what you've achieved, and it's been really cool because I know you're going to talk about this, but you're one of those I would say few, very few leaders who literally started in the organization as an intern, like starting in there as in college, and you literally worked your way up within this company, become the president and co-owner of Sun State Builders, one of Arizona's longest running general contractors. You have I think Arizona Business named you as one of the most influential women. I think it was like in 2014 to 2024. When I think about you, funny enough, I think of another woman, Ursula Barnes. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her at all, but she was the CEO of Xerox Company, and she too started literally as a college intern at Xerox and rose to the title of the CEO position. I'm
That's
so I'm
awesome.
so interested in this conversation. Looking forward to talking to you. With all that said, aside for work, who are you?
Outside of work, I'm a mom of two boys, 13 and 17. So my husband and I are in the trenches of raising young men, and that's always interesting and fun.
you know, to your point, my wife is so most people know we're 2.5 years, a little over 2.5 years into raising a little boy. He is three, he'll be three in July. And one of the things that we've found to be interesting is just how unique he is. As every child is. Like there is no quote unquote manual for raising your child, because the context your child is growing up with, which is you as a parent and the city, the culture, their genetics, like all those things make that little person a very unique person, and you have to learn to navigate that relationship. So it, you start off by talking about your husbands and your husband and your boys. Um, how does again at the present level, like how do you still navigate the individual personalities of the people you lead? Because again, there is no book on that person or this person. Each person is unique. How have you navigated that over the years?
Part of it, I think, is establishing a relationship with them, understanding who they are, what are their motivation, what's their drivers, and certain people in my organization, and it's one of those things. As I've come to know them, I start to understand. All right, are they somebody who needs a lot of verbal praise? Like, what's their love language? Like, is it that you give them a Starbucks gift card because they love coffee and that makes them feel like they're loved? Or what's that language that really speaks to their heart? And you learn it for each individual employee and then try to nurture that as you can, just like you would in any relationship.
that just it sounds like it takes a lot of time and effort, though. I mean, isn't there just like
It does. I think managing people does take time and effort. But I mean, in my mind and in my point of view, it's worth it. I don't know how, when you have those moments of tough conversation that you need to have that arise every now and again with anyone, if you don't have a foundation of a relationship there, for me, it's a much harder conversation. It's a much different conversation and level that you have to take in stepping forward and managing them versus if there's already like the foundation of a relationship. It seems like those tougher conversations are a lot easier to have, and like that honest feedback is a lot easier to give.
how who has because obviously you and I are aligned with this 100%. Who or what taught you this? Like, how did you learn that perspective? Do you was this naturally in you forever, or was there a person who mentored you? Did you see someone do something messed up? You're like, I'm not going to do that. Was it a book? How did you learn this philosophy that you live by?
Probably a lot of it I would attribute to my dad. He was the general manager of Sun State for 40 years, and that's kind of how I became just the starting intern. It started as a summer job and like, oh, sure, I'll go do that kind of thing. And I just saw how he managed people, and I just saw how the results that he could get, whether it was in the field or whether it was in the office, out of people, and thought, like, what is that about? And so, in different conversations with him, it was very much, hey, you can't act like you're better than doing any of these tasks that they're doing. You can't act like you're too good for those tasks. And how are you going to know what Joe or so and so is going through if you haven't talked to them, if you haven't asked about things outside the office? Like, sometimes knowing what happens outside the office gives you a deep insight as to what's happening inside the office, and you can just understand a better viewpoint from where that person's coming from. So I would say that that's something I just picked up from him and kind of continued it along the way.
Did your dad did he intentionally how much of it was you watching him versus him telling you stuff? I'd love to hear that.
I'd say it's probably 80% watching what he did or how he led.
Mhm, mhm. It's I mean, how both amazing and I don't wanna say difficult, but I spoke to another, CEO recently, and he was just we are just talking about the realities of when any upper level position, but definitely in the CEO role, people are watching you. Like you are on display. And he shared the pressure that can come from it as well, knowing every word, how you even if you're having a bad day and you say something off or just a little different, people read into those things. Um, I, what do you like? How have you ever dealt with the pressure? Have you ever felt a pressure of people watching all the time? And if so, like how do you navigate it? And if you haven't felt that pressure, what do you feel about your mindset how you live your life allows you not to feel that pressure?
Oh, I've felt that pressure more in the sense that, not that, oh my gosh, everyone's watching me for, what to do, but definitely in the sense that my words as the president carry more weight than they used to. And so I mean, I had a receptionist a couple of years back that she decided she wanted to take a job somewhere else. And on an exit interview, we said, well, what was one of the key factors for you deciding you wanted to work somewhere else? And she had mentioned to my partner, well, when Andrea walks in the door, she doesn't say hello to me. And oftentimes, if I'm on the phone, I wouldn't. I would walk by, and like kind of give a wave or whatever. But you don't realize how much things like that are
Mhm.
taken to heart from
Yeah.
people. And so for her, that translated that I didn't value her. And for me, it just was, I'm busy. I have a lot of things going on. And so I've had to kind of internalize that a little bit and say, hey, first of all, my teams and anyone that's here or anyone that's new to the company, I'm like, hey, if there is a time in which my answer seems short, or it seems very like direct, or it doesn't seem like I'm giving you full attention, or that I'm kind of blowing you off. That is never my intention ever. It probably is that I'm busy. And so please don't take that to heart or think that I value you less. Like, I try to have that conversation up front, but then also
Yeah.
internally, I try to say, hey, you're never too busy to slow down and to say, hey, how's it going? And what does that cost you? It costs you 30 seconds. But, from an employee point of view, it's a lot, so I've just tried to work on that. And that's really more, I would say, the pressure that you feel of just recognizing that, employees value what you have to say or what you don't say very much. And it affects how they feel about the company.
Wow. There's two things that come to mind when you shared that. Um, the first is a quick story, and the other is a saying. Um, the first is like I was like one of my coaching clients I was working with recently. Um, she was dealing with an issue, and it was actually having substantial impact on the team. And as she walked through the scenario, I just kind of just paused everything, and I was like, "Have you thought about doing X, Y, and Z? I'm like, that could solve your problem." And she stopped for a second. She was like, "I can't believe I haven't thought about that. Like, I do all these things. This is so simple." And she actually started beating herself up a little bit and was like, "No, no, 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 no. Like, there's so many things on our mind consistently. This is why that outside perspective is so important because, like you said, it just slows you down, like you said, so then you can have those conversations, internal conversations. So I love that you took that feedback and was like, whoa, like, okay, cool, got to be much more cognizant because there was no intent, there was no negative intent there. The quote line with that one is people need to be reminded much more than they need to be taught. This is like people are smart. People around you, like they're probably really smart. It's just something you gotta remind them of, like, hey, look, if I'm ever running, please no. I'm just
Yeah.
busy. And even reminding myself, hey, Alex, this is really important. Just say hi. I know you're on the call. Like that piece. And the other one I just want to put on the table for you is oh my God. Um, ugh, we need to be reminded more than they need to be taught. And then you said another one I can't remember it, but again, I'm loving this. Did you have any reaction to that before I move forward?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's exactly what you're saying, and I've had different CEO groups and stuff like that too, and I've had a couple of those moments where I'm like, wow, why did I not think of that? That was right in front of my face. So I definitely think that, the peer to peer groups are incredibly beneficial, because there are just certain things that sometimes we have these blinders that we don't see. And then someone points it out and you're like, oh, that was a really easy solution. I don't know why I was struggling with that. So I'm always grateful for peer feedback, and, even employee feedback. Yeah.
How I love to hear because when you and I first connected, you talked about the importance of your family. I was the first thing you said when I was like, "Who are you outside of work?" You're like, "My husband and my kid." Like, he's a family so important to you. You talked about the workspace, your father, and the amazing work that he did, and how he led people, kept people engaged and wanting to work at this company, wanting to be here to grow and work as a team to grow this amazing producer within Arizona. Um, and and you also talked about the level of quality and work that you provide to your customers. And I'd love to just dive in that for a moment. Like, would you mind sharing? You don't have to be specifically or detail if you don't have to, you don't want to, but like, what is one of your most proud moments in serving a customer?
Oh man, there's a lot of them.
I know.
There's a lot of them, but I would say, um, from a more like general standpoint, what I love about our customers is just the relationships that you end up building over the years. Like, I've
Mhm.
got customers that my first building I built for them was in 2007, or 2012, and they've come back to us over and over again. And so, like, about 70% of our business is repeat customers. And I take great pride in that. It means that we're doing something right. It means that they have confidence in us, and for us, one of our core values is just exceptional quality, that we just want to have a tremendously, valuable project to our customer, from serving them and making sure that, hey, what they need in this new facility is what they're getting, but they're also not having to spend money in places that they're like, I don't care about that. We try to really dial in that experience for them, so that we can walk them through and they're like, oh my gosh, building a building was the easiest thing possible. That to me is what I love about our customers, and getting to see. We just had one recently. It was a groundbreaking that the customer had developed a software for something and then had sold it. And so he said, hey, I'm going to invest in real estate. So I'm going to build a building, my first building. And at the groundbreaking are his parents and his aunt and uncle and his children and his sister. And it was just like, everyone was so excited to celebrate. And it's just, for me, those moments light me up, because I'm like, I get to be a part of helping him and the next chapter of how he, grows wealth for his family. And it's always so neat to see everyone's story.
I that's so, it really is cool. And like I said, you get to be a part of that story. Um, and I would say I love that you said something very interesting. You said, like, in this scenario, you said, like building a building or creating a building, right? Could be so easy, and the reality is that it's very difficult. It's very
Yes,
difficult.
but from my customer's perspective, it should be
It-
easy. On
and
my side, it's tough.
and that's what I wanted to get to, is that it is very difficult, very complex in raising a building. How do you how do you what do you do to create a space where you can do this complex hard work, but for your customer it feels easy?
So I think a lot of that is my team and them executing the way that we know how. So it's understanding the city process. Like, my pre-construction team understands the city processes inside and out. So they understand who to hire on the design side, who's a right fit for the right project. And so in making those little decisions of like, okay, I'm going to get the right team on board, and then I understand the city process myself, but also my consultant team understands the city process. So we understand what is the city of Phoenix looking for example, as far as an elevation goes. What are they going to concede in, like, a zoning issue? Like, what would they give into, or what were they not going to give into? Like, we just have been through those city processes so much that we can streamline a lot of that on the front end, so that for a customer, it's just, we submitted to the city 3 weeks later, okay, yeah, we got comments, we're going to address the comments. Okay, we got them back submitted. Okay, we have a building permit. So for my customer, it's they're not for them, it's like, oh yeah, they said that they were going to submit it and they got it there and it just went right through the city.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's just making sure that we're managing all those things. And the same thing through construction is being proactive in looking at the design, or hey, this like doesn't work very well, or and my team is incredibly talented at taking a look at different drawings and figuring out, like, where are we going to have issues before we've ever even built anything in the field, and working through those details, and just being another set of eyes to the design team to kind of say, hey, this grade isn't going to come out the way that we wanted, or it could be better, so let's do this. And all that's happening in the background. My customer, they just know, okay, we broke ground, we're pouring footings, so for them, it's just things are rolling along. And in the background, we're handling any issues, any kind of quality items. Like, a lot of my superintendent, it's funny, I'll walk onto the site and just to talk to them or whatever and look at something. And it's amazing to me how many times I can look at something that looks like maybe it needs a little bit of repair or fixing, or the quality wasn't as good as it should have been. And my superintendent will go, I know, I already got it. They're already pulling it out. It's going to be fixed. So having a team like that behind you makes it really easy for the customer just to go, oh yeah, I showed up and they were pulling a footing out because it wasn't the way that it was supposed to be. It's just for them, it's just so much easier that we just handle it for them, which is what we're supposed to do. That's what they pay us for.
I yes, yes. And I still I still would say don't hear about that all the time. The like you said, the quality checks, the proactivity, the like all those pieces that you're doing to provide the service for your clients so they don't have to think about everything. That is very something I think that's I would say it's unique to a few organizations, yours being one of them, and it definitely has to do with leadership. And so I'm looking forward to jumping to the second part of our conversation when we dive into leadership. So thank you so much. Can't wait to keep this conversation going. If you are a CEO, owner, president, or COO of a multi location operations heavy company, especially in truck, parts, or service, your biggest headaches may sound like this: communication breaking down between locations and departments, expectations that aren't clear so accountability is shaky, or decisions made in meetings that never really get implemented. I built something specifically for you. It's called the 5 CEO Bottleneck Scorecard. In about 10 minutes, it helps you first see which of the 5 leadership bottlenecks is most likely slowing down your company. Things like unclear expectations, weak follow through, or a leadership bench that isn't really leading. And next, where to focus over the next 90 days. When you complete it, you'll also get the option for a free one-on-one executive leadership diagnostic call with me to walk you through your results and turn them into a simple behavior-focused 90-day action plan. If you're watching on YouTube, scan the QR code on the screen now. On LinkedIn or Instagram, comment scorecard and we'll DM you the link. On audio, go to gpsleadership.org/scorecard. Again, that's gpsleadership.org/scorecard. Already, let's get back to the conversation. So, it, there are, I've worked with many organizations that have multi-generational ownership. So, grandfather, grandmother, granddaughter, so on and so forth, right? And there are unique challenges to transitioning leadership, transitioning ownership. There's loyalty to the old generation, so on and so forth. Um, but it seems like you all have had a very smooth transition, and like still, I mean, you all have been growing, and still keeping a very strong team. I'd love to hear from you because again, you started off as like, probably one of the lowest, most entry level positions, and you've made it all the way up to the presidency. Um, what is still hard? Like, what is still hard about being in this role in
Um,
regards to
I,
leadership?
I think, it's just I mean, the weight, obviously, when my partner and I became sole owners, the weight of having 70 employees that rely on you for their living and their families and stuff like that, the weight of that is always hard. It's always a, front reminder in your brain. But as far as like the internal workings of the company, a lot of what's hard is, like I said, the city processes. The cities are becoming more cumbersome, as they've had generations retire. Like, kind of after COVID, I think a lot of the older generations that were seasoned, that had a lot of knowledge, decided, hey, I'm just going to retire, or I'm going to do something different. So the cities have growing pains, just like a lot of the companies do, of getting the younger generation up to speed on different codes and things like that. So oftentimes the city process can be a little bit more cumbersome than it used to. But in establishing great relationships there and contacts there, you can navigate those pretty well. So it's something that's not tremendously hard. It's just something different and something you have to work through. But it takes a little bit of skill and the right relationships to be able to navigate that smoothly.
That's so interesting. So one of the last interviews I did was with another CEO who their they've grown their organization fairly large, and one of the big implications they're dealing with right now is a Supreme Court ruling that has impacted the entirety of their industry, and it's going to there's a likelihood of it causing massive mergers, acquisitions, like all kind of stuff, and companies going under. I guess this that big of a ruling has that big of an impact. And as you talk about the reality of the local community, quote unquote, local community, being within a state and whatnot, um, you know, people retiring, people moving out of positions, people who've known the process and knew the players and knew how to make things work smoothly within a particular area are no longer there. You're trying to bring other people back up to speed. Um, I hear you initially talking about the how important it is to build the relationship. Would you mind diving a little more into that? Because what I'm thinking, I'm also hearing is the intentionality to understand these changes are happening, and are we going to be, as you said earlier, to use your word, proactive in getting out there and meeting those people, establishing those relationships, understanding what problems, what drawbacks they may think are out there, and trying to educate them on the front end, or are you? I'm sure you're not going this way, but maybe you are saying more of a what's the opposite of proactive? Maybe more lackadaisical.
Reactive.
Reactive, yeah, reactive, yes, reactive approach, which is, you can build relationships on the reactive end, just kinda waiting for problems to bounce up to you and trying to do it there. What are your thoughts in regards to this?
Oftentimes, it's the same. Like I feel like in business, 75% of it is relationships. The rest of it is so it's when you get a new plan reviewer, like, oh, hey, thanks for looking at this. How long you been doing this? Where you just kind of, I mean, regular conversation, nothing crazy, but you just slowly start to understand. And then as issues do come up or they make a comment that you don't feel applies or whatever, you can say, okay, well, historically that's been allowed. So did something change or that I need to be aware of? Like, and the way that you approach it with them is because when you say that to them in that manner, they kind of like, well, let me go do a little bit of research and I'll come back to you. And you're like, okay, cool. And then a lot of times they can come back and like, oh no, you know what? I talked to someone and you're right that I was looking at the code wrong on that, so that comment doesn't apply anymore. And just having the ability to do that, and then oh, thank you for doing that. And I think a lot of people sometimes will take a response of someone doesn't know, so I'm just going to berate them and yell at them and tell them why I'm right. Well, first of all, that's never productive in any relationship at all, especially with a city that you have to recognize, okay, who has control, who has, the ability to make decisions or not make decisions. And I probably, you should never be treating anyone by berating them just because they had a point of view. But especially when that person can decide whether they add more stipulations or whether they, start putting these different holds. I mean, it's not productive in progressing forward. And they are genuinely good people. They want to get your project out of the ground. It's important to them. They just don't know. And so it's like you can teach them rather than, make an enemy.
I was once in that situation, like, obviously not exactly similar, but I was in a role where I served as the chief culture and communications officer for a national nonprofit for a while, and I remember saying something, and I received a bunch of emails back, and very clearly they weren't focused on education. They're focused on trying to make me feel stupid, trying to make me feel like I was trying to hurt people. Like it was about harming me more than it was about education. Um, and then I received, I think, one or two emails that were like, "Hey, Alex, not sure if you knew this, but this was going on." Da, da, da. And I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." And those emails, I was so much more willing to engage in and dive into, understand and learn, so on and so forth. And I'm gonna do this regardless. But those ones, I was like, "Okay, yeah, let's have a conversation. Help me learn, understand this better, so I can, as I'm framing how I'm gonna move forward, I can make adjustments." But the other ones, that was that they were so negative and so mean. They were mean-spirited. Um, I even tried to go back to them after I had done research. "Hey, this is what I found. Can you help me out?" They didn't wanna actually engage in conversation with me. They just wanted to hurt me. Um, and so when you say again, I'm just calling this out um, for other leaders as they see people around them who may be engaging in conversations, whether it be external stakeholders or internal stakeholders. Like you said, that educational piece and coming at it from a perspective like, I'm just trying to do my job, they're trying to do their job, let's have a conversation about this versus I'm right, they're wrong, they're my enemy, I'm gonna bulldoze them. I think like you said, you get more flies with honey than vinegar. That said, I would much rather have vinegar in that situation, I guess. I don't want flies. Oh, bees, bees, you get more bees.
Bees. That's it. Bees.
You
But
probably get
and
more
it's
flies than
true.
honey too.
Yeah, and it is true. Like in our company, my partner and I both, we model for our employees all the time of like, hey, I just because I'm giving you an answer, if you disagree with my answer or you don't think that that's right or you think we should do something different, speak up. Like this isn't a dictatorship. I'm not here just to say do this, whatever. Maybe there's a point that I haven't thought about, and then other times if you got to make a hard decision, I'll make the hard decision and it'll be my fault if it goes awry. But I think definitely just kind of teaching the people in the organization of like, hey guys, there needs to always be a level of professionalism that's maintained in which you're being kind, you're being polite, you're not berating somebody, you're not insulting them. Like, just that's the kind of organization we want to be. We want people to think of Sun State as those guys are always, treating us professional. They're quick, they're courteous, they're responsive. Those kind of impressions, goes a long way.
What I'd love to understand, again, your leadership philosophy and how you go about communicating both internally, externally, how you've shown, again, just even through what the examples you've provided, again, it's not just about what you say, it's what you do. People are watching. Um, I'd love to understand, is there one thing, because you've been in this your role now for the last 2 odd years, um, is there one thing as being the president of this organization that you were surprised about when you moved into the role? Um, because again, you weren't that far away from it, but when you were out the seat versus being in the seat, what was the surprise? Like, oh, I didn't realize this, or what was that?
Yeah, definitely the inner dynamic of employees and how important that is. And like before I took the role of president and we bought out our founder, before that, I was already, leading the field teams and things like that, and kind of already had that leadership component. So the day-to-day nuts and bolts
Mhm.
kind of didn't change much, but definitely that employee kind of dynamic and how they view you and how they view what you say, and kind of previously like we were talking about how it just carries more weight. That was definitely for me kind of the more wow, I hadn't considered that kind of moment.
And then on the other side, then, what is the thing that if you could give another CEO advice right now, from what you've experienced, what you've seen worked, um, what would that be? That what's that one thing that pops the first thing pops in your mind, like, "Consider this, think about this, I would do this." What is that thing?
For me, it's probably you've got to be willing to do what you're asking them to do, and you have to be willing to show. So if it's for me, we have different examples obviously in construction, but when my superintendent says, hey, I'm going to be off on vacation and I have a midnight pour, so I'm trying to get that covered, something like that, me saying, well, just let me know if you don't have somebody, just let me know. I'm happy to cover it if you need me to. and they're like, oh, okay, thanks. And obviously in their mind, they're thinking, I'm not asking her to cover the midnight concrete pour. But there's been times that they've come back to me and said, hey, I don't have anyone. Were you serious about that? I
Yeah.
said, yeah, absolutely. Tell me what time I need to be there. And so when they see that you're willing to do it, it's obviously not the best use of
Mm.
my time, but it's also not I'm too good for that, or I'm educated enough to hold my own. I'm not going to be nearly as good as my superintendents out there in those moments, but I'm educated enough to hold my own and understand the process. So that's what I would say, is just really dive into understanding what each position and kind of what they're going through. And if you don't, like, because you're new and you don't understand, like for me, I had the benefit of basically holding every position in the company besides being the CFO. So I knew what every spot, like, kind of what their hurdles were and kind of what would be frustrating for them. But if you don't, it's like, ask ask somebody, what's your
Mm.
greatest challenge this week? Like, what's the biggest problem that
Yeah.
you're facing? And then when someone says, oh, it's this, is that a reoccurring problem? Is that just something like that's unique because of circumstances? Like, and really
Yeah.
trying to understand every person's, like, stressors or problems. And then that way you can kind of go through. And so when you're saying to somebody, hey, I need you to get out 25 contracts in the next 10 minutes, well, you know that they're going to be stressed and frustrated because it takes longer than that. And so
Yeah.
you can go, okay,
Yeah.
well, that's an unrealistic request on my behalf, so I need to dial back my expectations. And it just helps you to be able to understand where they're coming from and ease interpersonal tension.
I love it. I love it so much. And if I can ask one last question before I open the floor for you, what is the I end up working with a lot of CEOs who would benefit from pos- repositioning the organization in a way that would allow them to step out of the operations and have their team doing that, and so they can be the CEO. And you and your co-owner, I think, seems to have done that very well, very effectively. You have teams that trust you. You have teams that operate. Um, what advice would you have for another CEO who knows they need to elevate themselves out of the operations a bit, but still has a bit of a challenge taking their hands off the reins?
It can be a challenge for sure. So I identify with the feeling. But for us, it was basically kind of doing almost like an inventory of, like almost like a pros and cons list, but in, okay, what are the things that the business needs for operation? And then what are the things that, we can do? How can we do them? How are we going to divide these tasks? And just being realistic about, okay, for the health of the organization, if I need to be focusing on these 10 things, then I don't have time to micromanage how somebody's doing something, or what processes are in place. Like, there's other people that are in my company that are just as smart as I am who can establish that, and it's a better use of my time doing these 5 or 10 things. And my partner and I, always will have a little bit of level of kind of management in the field and stuff like that, just from a standpoint of, if you're estimating something, if you're building something in the field, you just get a different view and nuanced perspective of the challenges and the hurdles, and even new city regulations, or just different things that have come up that you don't want to lose touch with those completely.
Mm.
At least for he and I, we don't. Because we want to be able to say, okay, yeah, 100,000 square foot building is running X number of bucks a foot, because that's something that comes up in conversation frequently.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we also don't want to be so far into the weeds that we're not focusing on the things that make the organization healthy and propel us forward.
Whew, you are
Whew,
so amazing.
you are so amazing.
So,
So,
um, I want to open the floor for you. Is there anything you want to share with our audience before we wrap up, madam?
I would just like anyone and everyone who's listening to try to encourage the younger generation of females to consider construction. Oftentimes, I think, women think, oh, geez, I don't want to be in the dirt. I don't want to be out there, in the hot, with electrical. And I think that just their brain or their thought of what construction is just kind of limited to the dirt. But there is a lot of valuable roles that women can hold, is from engineering, design, materials testing, project management. There's just a lot of different positions that they can hold. And quite honestly, I feel like women are very good at it. They have a very good skill set for project management, for project coordination, because you have to be able to have 10 balls in the air at all times and not forget any of them. And inherently, I think as moms, we already do that. So it's just extending it somewhere else. So there's definitely a lot of productive places that young females can be, and I'd like them to consider it.
If I can underscore, if you don't mind, underscore and just say, like, it's I'm gonna use this terminology. It's not the best terminology, but there are certain industries that I work with a lot, that are quote unquote not the sexy industry, not banking or finance or
Yeah.
media. But man, there's so much opportunity. You learn so much. The technology is crazy. In the construction industry, you don't think about it. You're like, oh, this is putting up houses, like you said, dirt. Like, no, it's crazy what you all are working with. But it's because it's not in the movies or the mainstream media that's where you should be focusing your energy and attention. And the reality is that, I'll shut up with this. Warren Buffett says, when people are, his investment philosophy is, when everyone's like super invested in something, you should be cautious. And when everyone's being cautious, you should drive into it. And the reality is that these are the industries that people aren't flowing to. And so it means there's literally more opportunity, less competition, just to do some amazing stuff. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
For sure.
Madam, again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the audience, our listeners. We greatly appreciate it. Again, we didn't become a top 10% podcast in the world because of my very handsome face. It's because of all of you, your engagement, for your sharing this message with your friends, your colleagues, your family members. Please continue to do that. And as always, I encourage everyone, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal. If you're a CEO, owner, president, or COO of a multi-location, operations-heavy company, and you heard your own challenges in this conversation, strong team on paper, but projects still move slower than they should, and too many decisions land back on your plate, that's exactly what we fix at GPS Leadership Solutions. We run a 14-day executive leadership diagnostic to show you how your key leaders and stakeholders actually experience your leadership, then build a simple 90-day plan to remove those bottlenecks and speed up decisions. To learn more or see if it's a fit for you and your organization, visit gpsleadership.org/360. That's gpsleadership.org/360. If you found this episode valuable, subscribe and share it with another leader who needs it. I'm Alex D. Tremble. Thank you for joining us on The Executive Appeal. I'll see you in the next episode. See ya.